Dear students, let us discuss about the 12th April 2016 newspaper. The first article is related to the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana. The program intends to provide clean energy to the BPL families. In this context, already the Ministry of Health report says that household air pollution is the major cause of the disease burden in India, the second most cause for the disease burden in India. So in this case, the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, it tries to provide for a gas cylinder with a connection to all the BPL families at free of cost. But however, not just providing for a connection and making them to use this connection properly is also an important criteria to decrease this pollution. So here, providing for refills, the subsidized refills are very critical, because when the cost of this is very high, then automatically there is a good chance that people will revert back to the old methods of cooking. And the second thing is improving the distribution channels. Now most of the distribution channels are urban areas located. So creating of new distribution channels or providing for small cylinders which will not make the users to pay at a single go, or providing for monthly installments for the cylinders, refilling, etc. These are the various things which can help. So creating of proper distribution channel and also a sales model is very critical. And third thing is, there are many exclusion errors. What are these exclusion errors? Now, many of the intended beneficiaries, they might be left out of the program. And added to that, the BPL line is a very destitute line. And many of the people above the BPL line also do not have access to the clean energy. So these two things have to be rectified. Then the scope of this particular program have to be extended. So this is what is being suggested. So the next thing is, the populism triumphs the public safety. Now here, let us take about the politicians. The politics always, they try not to interfere or pamper the religious actions. So in this context, in India, the temple management is given to the hands of the local committees, which are intricately connected with the politics of the districts or the locality. So in these circumstances, the safety, especially the fire safety, and also the management of an event in the temple, it is becoming more a worrisome exercise for the local administration. If you take the Kerala Puthingal Devi temple accident recently, though the local administration has given sufficient warnings, the political interference and the local temple managed committees deaf ears to these warnings. So it has led to the huge accident. So what India has to do in these circumstances? The fire safety protocols have to be installed everywhere, and the event management has to be given with standard operating protocols. Irrespective of whatever the political interference is, these standard operating protocols need to be implemented. So in this context, the final word, it is, the accountability shall be fixed, and the politicians indirectly giving pressures or putting the pressures on the district administration shall not be a reason for the district administration not to act against the violations of the law. And the second major factor with regard to India is, whenever there is an event, the mass deployment of the police force is undertaken. So generally we equate the number of police with discipline. It is not the deployment of numbers that will change. It is the quality of deployment and well-training of these people in handling these situations makes a difference. So these things need to be given due priority. And peace in Yemen. You know that the warring factions in Yemen are, one is the President Hadi and the Houthi rebels. The Houthi rebels are Shias. He is a Sunni, and he is getting the support from Saudi Arabia, and Houthi Shias, they are getting the support from Iran. So now, so there is this particular, Yemen is a proxy war between the Saudi Arabia and Iran. So in this context, it has led to huge humanitarian crisis, and failure for any conflict resolution has further worsened the scenario, and it has given a good scope for the development of Al-Qaeda network over there. So in this context, a peace agreement was reached between Houthi rebels and the Hadi. So in this context, this peace has to be given a due chance to find a solution to the problem. And added to that, Yemen is in a unique situation. If you take Syria, so it is ruled by a Shia but majority are Sunni. But the situation is not like that in Yemen. Hadi is a Sunni and Sunnis constitute around 50 to 55% of the population. And the Shias, they constitute around 40 to 45% of the population. So there is a near equal distribution of Sunnis and Shias makes the Yemen a fireplace across the world. So in this context, a national unity government has to be developed. And this unity government shall be given a space to find out the way out from the Yemen crisis. And Houthis have to understand that they alone cannot take the control over the state. And even the President Hadi shall understand that he alone cannot govern the people who are in minority or who are not willing to be governed by him. And next is the Congress. Now this is mostly a political article and which we may not, may not be necessary for us. So in this case, why the Congress is seeing a downward spiral? The major thing the author talks about is the leadership crisis. And the second is, there is no confidence being instilled into the rank and file. The series of defeats due to lack of proper strategy. And there is a gap between the ideals which are being formulated at the leadership and the ground level action. Because in the previous leaderships, most of the followers were appointed as the general secretaries of the party. Now in the existing leadership, professionals who are educated in the management, these are managing the party. So in these circumstances, disconnect between the ground realities and the direction the leadership is taking is the major threat to the long-term existence of the party. And the next is, Libya, you know that President Obama, he has recently accused the Britain, France for their lack of consistency on the policy in Libya. In this context, the President Obama has clearly stated lack of post policy after the defeat of Mr. Gaddafi in Libya is a major setback to his presidency. So because of this, as there was no state apparatus now working, the Libya is a hard ground for the extension of the actions of Islamic State over there. And coming to the superbugs, now we are getting a series of articles on the superbugs. Tuberculosis resistance is a favorable article, and today we are talking about an MCR1 gene. This MCR1 gene, it is developed in commensal bacteria, the bacteria that naturally exist in our intestines. And this bacterial gene, whatever the bacteria possess this gene, they are totally resistant to any of the drugs which are being taken up against a disease. It means all our antibiotics, they become non-functional. In this case, there is a super antibiotic that is called colistin. Now, previously they used this colistin against the gram-negative bacteria, but over a period of time, as the renal failure is reported from this, so the use is not prescribed anymore. But however, it is used as a last resort drug when all the antibiotics are not functioning. So even against this colistin, the microbial resistance is visible. So it is a dangerous sign to the healthcare industry. Now coming to the Indian Express, inviting the disaster. So it is regard to the Kerala's accident. So the entire collapse of the local administration or lack of respect and space for the local administration to act can be cited as the major reason for this particular accident. And the next is passing the test. The Jammu Kashmir's deputy CM and his intervention with regard to the NIT Srinagar's crisis, it is a way forward how a crisis have to be dealt at the political level. So where he has mediated between the locals and non-locals and tried to take their concerns into consideration without compromising the integrity of the nation and by keeping the spirit of nationalism alive. Coming to the next to this thing that is related to the Raja Mohan article. This is very important article. So what he talks about the autonomous weapons. These autonomous weapons, there shall not be there need not be a person who has to use these weapons So when you feed the data into a computer and direct the weapon, it will go and act in the war field. So in this case, the autonomous weapons are the future of the military industry. But India, there is no proper research being undertaken on the autonomous weapons. But in the United States of America, the Silicon Valley and military cooperation is increasing, and the autonomous weapons are considered to be the future of the military industry. So in this context, these are often described as a third offset strategy. The present Defense Secretary Ashton Carter has given due emphasis on these autonomous weapons. So India has to extend its relations with the United States of America, and the scope of these defense relations also shall include these autonomous weapons. And coming to what is secularism, most of these arguments what he is talking about appears to be radical to me, but I may not be agreeing with many of these things, but let us understand what he is spoken about here. He was the former Union Home Secretary, Mr. Madhav Godbole. What he says is, in India, the secularism and minority, these words are not defined properly, and there is no proper direction to the authorities how to act on these words. And added to that, the minority educational institutions, excessive protections given them has to be dealt with. And Article 25 provides for propagation of a religion. So many of the times the Supreme Court and many high courts in India clarified that the right to religion, freedom of religion, shall not include the freedom to propagate a religion. So in this case, the word propagate has to be removed from altogether in the Constitution. And the next is, a special commission has to be created under the Constitution to oversee the implementation of the constitutional guarantees. The state and religion have to be totally separated. If any political party explicitly associated with a particular religion, then it has to be banned from contesting the elections. So these are the various recommendations. Article 48, which talks about the prohibition of the slaughter, this also have to be removed. So these all the articles which are bringing the religion and the state together have to be separated from our constitution. That is what is the, in nutshell, about this particular article. Now, yesterday we saw one article, I think 2 days back, which says that India signing off SISMOA, Logistics Supports Agreement, LSA, and the third thing, the exchange of information, that is BICA, Bilateral Exchange Cooperation Agreement. All these will decrease the India's options of engagement with the global nations. And also it increases the rivalry between India and China. Counter to this article, what it says is, the US wants a strong Indian military to deter the China, not to raise the conflict with the China. It wants to bring in a balance of power in Asia between India and China. That is what is the essence of this article. So thank you very much. All the best.